The Virtual Boy is famous for being one of Nintendo's most visible and shortest-lived commercial failures. Released in the summer of 1995 in only Japan and North America, the Virtual Boy simulates 3D images with a visor display, rendered in monochromatic black and red. It was widely considered to be uncomfortable for both the eyes and the back, and was discontinued in both regions around half a year later with 22 games released. Personally, I kinda like the Virtual Boy, at least for its hardware. The 3D effect is clean and convincing, and it's not all that uncomfortable if you play it lying down. Nintendo tried its hand at 3D again about a decade and a half later, with the 3DS in 2011. The effect was well received, though 3D is still not to everyone's liking. But Nintendo's history with 3D gaming actually extends back to 8 years before the Virtual Boy, for use on a home console. This is the Famicom 3D system. The Famicom 3D system hit Japan in 1987 and was never released for its overseas counterpart, the Nintendo Entertainment System. The visor easily straps around the player's head, leaving plenty of room for regular glasses underneath. The cord plugs into a little box with a 3.5mm headphone-style jack, and then into the Famicom's expansion port. Most compatible games activate 3D mode by hitting the select button during gameplay. Viewers without the 3D visor will see a flickery image like this. The visor works its magic by rapidly covering each eye alternately, so that when the image meant to be seen by the left eye is on screen, the right eye is covered, and vice versa. The visor syncs up to the timing standards of CRT televisions used in Japan and North America, so unfortunately, the effect is impossible on modern displays. But what's cool is that today, you can actually view the 3D effect in higher quality than was ever intended to be possible thanks to the NES RGB mod. And yeah, the 3D effect does work. It's pretty neat considering the age of the technology. It's far from perfect though. The visor darkens your vision considerably and adds a rapid strobing effect that isn't exactly the most pleasing thing in the world. But does it make the games any better? Only 8 3D Famicom games were ever released, 4 of them as cartridges and the other half on the Famicom disk system. Let's take a look at all of them. 3D Hot Rally is the only game that Nintendo itself released for the Famicom 3D system. Co-developed by HAL and Nintendo's EAD, it's also the first game that Satoru Iwata and Shigeru Miyamoto worked on together. It's loosely part of a series of Nintendo racing games that only incidentally star Mario and other Nintendo characters. A precursor to Mario Kart? Well, maybe sorta. But perhaps most notably, this Famicom Disk System exclusive is the first game with artwork featuring Luigi in his modern style. Taller and skinnier than Mario, with a distinctly different mustache. 3D Hot Rally has only 3 courses, but a big part of the fun, at least back in the day in Japan, was to submit course times to Nintendo to win prizes in official competitions via Famicom fax machine installations throughout the country. Scenery along the courses feature grumpy boulders, snakehead lampposts, and horrifying bushes. Was Miyamoto going through a tough time? Each course also features many branching paths, so you'll want to learn a route that best works for your vehicle and driving style. And they're long, well over 10 minutes, so the race against the clock can get pretty intense. At the start of a course, you'll choose an automatic repair point where your vehicle instantly recovers from damage, if you remember to take the right route to reach it. If you're not gonna make it, you can have Mario and Luigi waste a few seconds while they patch things up. Hitting up and down shifts gears. Automatic isn't exactly my specialty, but this wasn't difficult. If you collect enough H icons, then you get a special temporary highest gear. Alright, we're going hot! Whoa! I just love the air that you can get off the hills. It's crazy how this more primitive 3D scaling trick allows for such varied terrain as opposed to the flat mode 7 racers we got on the SNES. Overall short on content, but still a fun 8-bit racer. Attack Animal Gakuen, literally Attack Animal Academy, was the first Famicom 3D kart that I came across. I was so fascinated by its completely ridiculous label art that I just had to give it a shot. Note to publishers, if your artwork features alligators falling from the sky, I will play your game. Well, what we've got here is the most blatant Space Harrier ripoff imaginable. I mean, look at this! So you're this schoolgirl flying around for some reason, shooting a gun at kangaroos, skeletons with sunglasses, and yes, flying alligators. The first boss is a koala dressed like a 1920s gangster. I mean, that's amazing! But starting with the level 2 boss, the game feels like it's already blown the best of its absurdity, and it also becomes nearly unplayable due to how difficult it is to dodge the sheer number and speed of the things hurtling toward you at all times. It's even worse considering the game has no continues. I had to resort to playing on the Retron 5 with save states to record all of the footage that I wanted, which seriously diminished my enjoyment of the game. And of course, the 3D effect only works on original hardware. It looks pretty good, though the sprite scaling isn't smooth enough to completely sell the effect of enemies and shots coming at you. Attack Animal Gakuen is an interesting oddity, but even if it had continues, that wouldn't have saved it from its troublesome aiming and cluttered boss fights. The 3D Battles of WorldRunner! In North America, 3D WorldRunner came packaged with a pair of red and blue 3D glasses, kinda like these. But in Japan, it was released on the Famicom Disk System, and is compatible with the 3D system. The Japanese title is Tomodachi Daisakusen, or Operation Jump Out. 3D WorldRunner was developed by a young and struggling Square, designed by Hironobu Sakaguchi, composed by Nobuo Uematsu, and programmed by Nasser Jabeli, the team that would go on to create Final Fantasy. Since I'm playing the NES cartridge adapted to the Famicom, hitting the select button won't activate the shutter effect on the 3D visor. To be honest, the red and blue 3D effect in the North American version doesn't really seem to work for me. 3D WorldRunner certainly has an interesting look. It's very colorful and fanciful. You can speed up and slow down by holding up or down on the D-pad, and you just run forward, dodging enemies. You'll fly around and shoot a giant snake boss at the end of stages, Space Harrier style. It's not a terrible game, but I was getting really frustrated and losing interest in World 2. Upon restarting, I discovered that bumping into columns is a good thing? Well, it's kinda funny, but this is how you get power-ups. But don't grab mushrooms, those'll kill ya. This kind of renewed my interest in the game for a bit, but then there were these horrible giant gaps in World 3, and I felt I'd had enough. It's certainly an interesting game, and I don't hate it, but I don't feel compelled to play much more. Sakaguchi and his crew weren't done with 3D yet. Rad Racer may be best known for its appearance in the infamous Power Glove scene in The Wizard, but the Japanese version, Highway Star, features support for the Famicom 3D system. Highway Star actually released before 3D Hot Rally, and has a really excellent sense of speed, and I feel like superior perspective scaling. The controls are also a lot simpler, but that doesn't mean it's easier. With 8 visually varied stages and no second chances, getting to the end of Highway Star is a daunting task. Thankfully, it does have a simple continue cheat and a level select code if you want to practice any course. Similar to 3D Hot Rally, you're not actually racing against other cars on the track, but just trying to hit checkpoints without running out of time. There's really not much to say about Highway Star / Rad Racer, but it is strangely fun. The 3D perspective is excellent, and the 3D visor effect works fairly well, though I feel it adds little in the way of improved depth perception. The car just has a great feel to it and is really a pleasure to control. I can see the appeal for 80s kids who couldn't drive just yet. But that's not all from Square. You know the famous story about how Sakaguchi's games prior to Final Fantasy hadn't sold all that well? Well, Square was the only company to create more than one 3D system title, let alone 3. Sakaguchi's last game prior to Final Fantasy was a sequel to 3D WorldRunner, released only in Japan as JJ. This is intended to be like a dark and more hardcore version of Tomodachi Daisakusen. Gone are the cute and colorful enemies, and there's only one speed: fast. And yet, I found the game to actually be quite a bit more compelling. The single speed made it easier to get into a groove, and the large gaps that made World 3 so frustrating in the first game actually became somewhat manageable in JJ. One-ups are more plentiful, and overall it just comes across as a better game. I get the sense that there's a bit of intentional humor here. The tough and gritty atmosphere is almost over the top, and it kinda clashes with the goofy gameplay. Is it just me, or does Jumpin' Jack kinda look like Big Boss? The quality of the 3D effect is also one of the finest on the Famicom 3D system. I didn't finish, and I imagine it would eventually frustrate me to no end, but if I do put more time into a WorldRunner game, this will be the one. Falchion is a Famicom Disk System game developed by Konami. Now I'm pretty sure those guys knew how to make a space shooter, yeah? Whoa, jeez! Now I've never seen a starry space background like this before, and with good reason. The graphics look even worse in 3D. Just like with the 3DS, dark scenes tend to show 3D ghosting more easily than bright colors. This is especially problematic because it's supposed to look like your ship is popping out in front of the screen, which totally threw off my ability to focus on the rest of the image. The screen darkening that's inherent from viewing through the visor also makes the dark shots you're supposed to dodge extremely difficult to see. Thankfully, the background does change after the first level, and you do have a few continues, but the perspective and scaling was so poor that I never found myself having any fun, and I didn't make it very far. Alright, Cosmic Epsilon, now this game looks pretty rad!
Good luck!
Whoa! Does that voice take up half the cart? Hey, actually, this one seems pretty good. And listen to this music, it sounds straight out of Mario Galaxy. I later learned that this is actually a straight-up cover of a Japanese pop song called Parachute Lemon. No idea if they went through the proper channels, but it's super catchy. I really like the look of this game. I think the textured ground effect is pretty great, And watch how the perspective shifts slightly left and right with your character. That's neat! The 3D effect in Cosmic Epsilon is probably the best on the system, thanks to the generally bright graphics and surprisingly smooth enemy scaling. Aiming is also easier than in Falchion or Attack Animal Gakuen. But sadly, just like Attack Animal Gakuen, what starts off looking super promising becomes almost impossible by the second level. This is not a particularly short game, and the difficulty ramps up to the extreme very quickly. It has no continues and exceedingly scarce opportunities for extra lives. Without any sort of upgrade system or more robust dodge mechanics to balance out this level of challenge, Cosmic Epsilon is far too difficult to be much fun past the first level. And that's a real shame because by playing on the Retron 5, I got to see some pretty cool stuff. Check out the last level on the Battle Moon Aria. How awesome is that? And who knew the NES could pull off an amazing Death Star trench run? With just a few smart tweaks, this could have been a real hidden gem. I guess developers were having a hard time coming up with ideas for 3D visuals other than shooters, racers, and runners. Well, we've got one more 3D game, and this one is actually quite a bit different. Fuuun Shaolin something. Well, it's a fighting game by Jaleco. It even has a 2-player mode. Seems maybe kind of advanced for its time? I'm gonna be honest with you. I have absolutely no skill in this genre, so I can't fairly praise or condemn it. But it seems like it might be kinda neat. There's story scenes that I can't read at all, but I like how there's actually branching paths that determine what fight comes next. But man, the computer just tears me to shreds in no time at all, and I was never able to pull off any of the fancy moves that I think the manual is detailing. As you might expect, all the 3D does in this game is make the backgrounds look like they're farther away. It's kind of neat to see 3D used in more of a mundane manner, even if it doesn't really add anything to the game at all. Whew! So that's all of the games that support the Famicom 3D system. I wish I could say more good things about them, but sadly most of them are flawed to some greater or lesser degree. My top recommendation is 3D Hot Rally, which is pretty neat regardless of whether you're using the 3D visor or not. So yeah, maybe not the best selection of games, and sure, the technology is a bit dated, and it's more of a novelty than a gameplay enhancer, but it is amazing to see something like this from that time, and it does actually work.